The sit down interview is a staple to pretty much any storytelling that's non narrative. And a lot of people don't think about how they do an interview, and they should. Hey guys, like and subscribe if any of this is of help to you. So, today's topic is conducting an interview. And, at the outset, it seems like it's a simple thing to do. Just write a bunch of questions, ask them the questions, they answer them, you have what you need. But it is often more complicated than that. So I thought I would go through some tips that I use when I'm conducting interviews that seem to help it flow a little bit better. One of the first things that I think is important is that you need to realize how fragile a story is. It is an extreme matter of trust for someone to tell their very personal story to you. So, number one, don't look at this as a product. Don't get in a hurry. Don't just want to get through the interview so you can get to the shots that you want to get. Someone's telling you their story, and it's the most fragile little box they can hand you because you can mess it up. So, the first thing that you need to realize is it's important. And you need to take your time and treat it as something valuable and precious because it is. So let's talk about before you even show up to interview someone. It's about preparation. If you're lucky enough to have a researcher, they've already done it. They've prepped the person, they've talked to them, they've gotten the bulk of their story, they've written it down, and they've given you a treatment that you'll be able to look at. But whether you've already had a researcher do it or whether you're the researcher, the pre-interview is very important. That's when you are going to connect with this person. You're going to hear their entire story, right? The more rambling they do on the pre-interview, the better you can control not going down the rabbit holes when you're paying for a crew to be there to interview them, right? So if you can pre-interview them, that lets them get everything off of their chest as well, right? Sometimes people just want to get stuff out. And what is terrible is that they're getting that out in a 3-hour interview that's burning your day with your camera crew. Do the pre-interview. Let them get everything they want to say off their chest. And sometimes it'll actually give you some ideas of some other places you can take the interview when you're doing it in front of the camera. And so the pre-interview is very important. 1 or 2 pre-interviews help out so much. And it really helps build the relationship that you're having with this person who's sharing their story. Also, we'll talk about that later, but that's a very important thing, is building that relationship. Because they need to trust you. Because they're giving you something precious. So be trustworthy about that. Preparation is important, not just of the person being interviewed, but also your crew. Now, I've been the cameraman on the crew, and then I've also been the interviewer and the producer on the crew. And I think it's important, if you're dealing with a very sensitive issue, make sure your guys know that. Make sure that they are aware that, you know what, we might need a more somber environment while we're working. You know what, we might need to keep the talking to a minimum. And we need to make this person more comfortable. So maybe we're going to shoot the interview with a longer lens because I want them to be farther away from this person. Maybe they have a problem walking, so we're going to tape down the cables so that it's easier for them to not trip. Maybe they'll get spooked by the big lights and the camera, and so we'll light in a way that's a little less obtrusive. I, for one, I think an eye line is really important. And so I try to be with my shoulder right underneath the camera lens. I want their eye line to be this close, right? Sometimes for lighting, you might tweak, and then the farther away from the lens I get, the less what I'm saying is important. And so for me, I like that eye line right about there because I feel like I'm engaging the most without breaking the wall. So number one for me is let's make sure I get a tight eye line. And if I got to have my shoulder right underneath the camera, that's fine. I don't care. But you want to have a tight eye line. Just a quick note as you're prepping your crew, whoever's running audio, have a conversation with them about how you want them to deal with audio problems on the set. So if there's a train or a plane or a noise outside, some audio guys might not be in the zone and they will just blurt out, oh, I gotta stop. The person's about to cry. I'd rather deal with bad audio and get that emotional soundbite than just stop them in the middle, right? So have a conversation. A lot of times I'll tell the audio guy, hey man, I've run audio before. I hear it. We can make, maybe there's eye contact or whatever, and he can, or I let the soundbite go and then I go, hey, was that good enough? Do I need to re-ask that question? Right? It's just make sure you've had that conversation before the truck goes by during the important soundbite. That's very important. Establish those rules with the crew and everybody else. Sometimes it's about having a distracting camera guy behind the camera. Sometimes I don't like people using their cell phones on a set. And if the person is engaging with me, right? I've got my eye line right here, and my guy pulls out a cell phone and is like, blah, 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 blah. That distracts. So have the conversation. Hey guys, we're going to keep it really professional. We're going to not use our cell phones. I don't want anything distracting in the eye line. It sounds like you're being a jerk about it, but these are little things that will influence how the interview is being conducted. Let's say we're going to someone's house to interview them. When you show up, leave the gear in the car. Walk in as human beings, tour the house, and connect with the person. This is really important. You don't want to show up at the front door with a tripod on your shoulder, right? You're not part of the gear. You're human beings making a connection. And that goes not just for you as the producer, but also for the camera crew. These people are going to need to connect with your crew as well. So come in, maybe have a cup of coffee, build this into your schedule. Take the time to walk through the house and get to know the person. Your crew is looking for the best place to set up the interview, and you're looking for something that's representative as well. You'll also find little tidbits. You'll find something that might help in the interview, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But walk in and be a person first. Connect, establish trust, then go get the gear and set up. Once the crew started setting up for the interview, that doesn't mean that you relax. That's the time to do your final pre-interview before y'all sit down in front of the camera. And you're going to prep them as much as you do any other prep. Because you've already done the pre-interview, as I'm talking to them at the kitchen table, I'm telling them what I'm going to need for this interview. I may be talking to them big picture. I don't give people a list of questions and things like that before. But big picture, I just want to say, listen, we're going to concentrate on this part of your story. We're not going to concentrate so much on this part of the story that you shared in our 3-hour pre-interview, right? I will also prep them because I'm acquiring, they don't have the burden of telling their whole story to me now because they already have, right? So I'm letting them know I'm just acquiring particular sound bites to tell my story. I will also say I don't normally use voiceover in my stories because I want you to tell your story. So there may be some times where I ask you to just give me a transitional statement to get me to the next part of the story. Also, one of my favorites is to say, look, because they're not hearing my questions, I would love for you to put my question in your answer. So if I say, what is your favorite color? You don't just say blue, you say, my favorite color is blue, right? That way I get a full soundbite. Integrity is important. And you need to make sure that when someone is telling their story, that you are using what they say in context, okay? Also, I believe it's important to not manipulate someone into saying something that you want them to say just for the sake of your story or your documentary. Now, there's a difference between manipulating someone and getting them in a space to say what you need them to say that is consistent with who they are and what they are about. They've been talking about their college years, and now you need to talk about when they were married with kids, right? You can say, so once you left college and you guys got married and moved into that house, what happened? Then, if they're remembering to put my question in their answer, then I get that transitional statement. I get them going, once I left college, we moved into our house in so-and-so, and then we started here after our second kid. Now I have the transition. Now they've gotten me over that bridge. So using the technique of having them say your question and their answer will help you in editing to slide through that. Yeah, as you're doing the interview, you're thinking of the edit. You're thinking of, does this tie in? Did I get it? Because you've prepped them, you can go back and say, I love what you said, but now I need you to say that shorter. So can you kind of just compress that into a couple of sentences? Tell me how you got from here to here. Thank you. And then ask that question. So the pre-interview set you up. Talking to them at the kitchen table while the guys were setting up the interview helped them understand your path in doing the questions. Okay, so I want to go back to the whole integrity thing for a minute. It's just super important to me because I've been the camera guy listening to someone conduct an interview, and I thought, I just don't think they're doing that right. It doesn't feel right. Your integrity, your ethics, your gut is what should guide you. Am I pushing too far? Should I push more? That's inside you. So you need to decide that. You need to have already established a relationship with this person. I don't believe that you go for the jugular in the interviews. But I think that if you've established trust, the person is more likely to open up and to share with you and to be in a better emotional space. There are some techniques that you can get people in an emotional space that they are not in. And again, I think that you use it sparsely, but it's important. So let's say you're talking to someone and they're just not opening up. They're really stiff. They're in their head, right? And you're not getting any emotion out of them. But you've looked around the house and you're like, hey, you have a lot of ships in a bottle. Are you into that as a hobby? They lighten up. Yeah, it's great. I love it. What I love about this is blah, blah, blah. You ask a couple follow-up questions. He's getting excited about talking about how building ships in a bottle, that's his passion. Great. You let him finish. And then you go, hey, tell me what it was like right after the birth of your son. Oh, it was great. Blah, 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 blah. You got him into an emotional place, and then you asked the question you needed that fit with that. As long as you're not abusing that, that's a great technique. It's the same. Maybe they're a speaker and they've told the story a million times and there's no emotion in it, right? And you need them to be more emotional. Hey, I noticed you don't have a dog, but there's a lot of pictures of a particular dog around the house. Do you not have that dog anymore? Yeah, Spot was a great dog and we lost him last year. Oh, that's terrible. A family dog can be so much a part of the family. Yeah, it was really tough on all of us. So I'm sorry. Going back to the interview. So when you lost your job, how did that, what happened to you after that? I put him in that spot. He was sad, and then I asked him a sad question. That's just a very simple way to get them in the emotional space that you need without being disingenuous and without misusing that. Your ethics are the number one guide on that. Don't abuse that. I'm sorry I'm getting a little too serious about this, but again, I've been in places where I was not the one conducting the interview, and I really felt like people were stepping over the line. And so a lot of what I've decided to be a part of how I'm going to manage an interview has been because I have seen it done really well, and I've taken notes on that, and I've seen it done in positions that I just didn't think were right. And so it's important for you to just find your zone on that. and be honest. The story is not more important than the person. And I think that's important. And they need to know that as much as you do. I hope these are helpful tips to you guys. It's really just principles that I've gained from years of doing it. And I think that obviously the number one thing, be sensitive and realize that telling somebody's story is about as important a thing as you can do. No, it's not. You can save lives. It's really important to be true to the spirit of the person and the spirit of their story when you're telling their story. That's the most important thing. And if you do that well, I think everything else will fall into place. So I hope this has been helpful. Just an old guy telling you what he thinks. Hey guys, I'd love to hear from you. Any comments that you have as to whether you agree or disagree with what I've been saying. I would also love to hear your horror stories. Tell me the worst interview that you've had or the worst location you've done an interview in. I would love to hear those stories. Also, I would love your tips and tricks. Anything that you've done that you've been like, that's really works. I would like to share that. Please do. Let's talk. As always, if you've liked anything I've said, please like and subscribe. Honestly, even if you don't like what I've said, go ahead and like and subscribe anyways. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.